I genuinely hope that this is not the tone of the conversation between the two delegations there. That's having said that, let's focus on India's position. Alison, India has very clearly maintained a neutral stance here when it comes to United States, as well as continuing its trade with Russia. This includes energy trade and the defense ties. How should India be looking at this in terms of that? Because how is India going to gain out of this these particular talks? Should India be also worried that if at all these talks fall apart, that is going to come and hurt India as well?
So the advantage that India has in this particular situation, and is unique to India and maybe 2 or 3 other countries in the world, is that they are large enough and big enough that they can talk to the US and talk to Russia with a level of weight that most countries can't, where they are more subject to the whims of Russia and DC than others. In terms of, it's going to come down to what India needs. I think they were targeted in part because, yes, they purchase Russian oil, and that is what is helping the economy stay afloat. But to Dr. Benkin's point, if the US, for example, could say, hey, we can sell you discounted oil at the same price or lower, buy from us, there's no reason why India couldn't do that. Because at the end of the day, given how much India depends on oil imports at the current moment in time, it's really about how much does it cost, because the less you can pay to meet your needs, the better off you are with a business deal. And in that sense, I think India has shown time and again that they're very pragmatic with their diplomatic relationships. They understand the limitations that come with kind of trying to do that middle of the road approach to countries. But at the same time, that also gives them an opportunity to negotiate and try to get terms that are more beneficial for whatever their needs may be, either in terms of defense or investment or oil and imports or whatever you have.
Benkin, how should India be reading the possible impact of this particular meeting, especially on the India-US tariff negotiations?
You talking to me?
Yes, this is for you,
okay.
Dr. Benkin.
Sorry. I think those negotiations are going to go forward. Exactly the form it takes will depend on what happens with the United States and Russia. No doubt for India, seeing good relations between the United States and Russia is something beneficial, and I think they can take a lot of credit for that if that happens. However, I think we want to keep something else in mind. And here's a vulnerability the United States has vis-a-vis India. For the last several months at least, there has been a market transition whereby many American companies have been moving out of China and into India. For instance, I just got a new iPhone, and when I got it, I said to the person, "I'll bet it's made in India," because India now, not China, is the greatest source of iPhones to the United States. We're starting to see a lot of that change. If India is faced with all sorts of penalties, if the American companies that now set up in India are faced with all sorts of penalties, that's going to create even more dislocation than putting the secondary tariffs on China and not giving them the same sort of access they were used to the American consumer market. I think those trade negotiations will go on. I think they'll go on well. I think one way or another, India is going to be able to demand a fair deal. And I think they're going to get it. And I think President Trump, as well as Prime Minister Modi, are going to be very happy with that.
Alison, you agree to what Dr. Benkin said? Also, if these talks, they are successful, do you think the bettering of the ties between US and Russia, do you think it is going to complicate or strengthen India's balancing act? How do you look at it?
I don't necessarily think it will complicate India's balancing act because the issue will come from what are the U.S. strategic interests and what are the Russia's strategic interests. And there's plenty of other locations in the world where they come head to head or that are seen as slightly more valuable. Where India has been strategic to the United States is with the Indo-Pacific strategy and how they're dealing with China. So in that sense, the future of U.S.-Chinese relations, I think, will also factor into the U.S.-India relationship and it can't just be defined by how the U.S. and Russia are working, but you also have the Chinese component to that. And then with the U.S.-Russia angle, all of the other places in the world where the U.S. and Russia either have competing interests or common interests, like Middle East, Syria, Israel issues, South Caucasus that have been going on, Venezuela, and so many moving pieces with this really important bilateral relationship that India is one of the key components. But there's so many moving parts that there's a lot of variables that could impact how India comes out of this. But in general, they should be okay because they're not the primary target.
Okay, Dr. Benkin, I also want to talk about Donald Trump's ambitions, personal ambitions, especially with respect to the Nobel Peace Prize. How much of this particular summit is about Trump's personal political legacy, including the talks about the Nobel Peace Prize versus genuine conflict resolution?
Well, I think it would be foolish to discount that factor entirely. I do believe, however, that if anyone is expecting Donald Trump to basically give Vladimir Putin a store so he can say, look, I ended this war and now give me the Nobel Peace Prize, I think that would be rather foolish. And as I said, it would be foolish to discount that. I want to mention something else on the last. Besides, I think Ms. Federica was absolutely correct in what she said. I will also mention that India is poised to become the Asian giant, economically, militarily, and you don't do that by tying yourself to a dying power like Russia, demographically, economically, or even seeing militarily. They're in trouble. But in fact, you develop that stronger relationship with a rising power, which seems to be the United States at this point. So again, I think whatever happens today, India is going to be able to play its hand very, very well. And I think when Prime Minister Modi visited the United States not long ago, and President Trump said, he's a tougher negotiator than I am, I think that was a compliment. I think that was rather accurate. I think India is going to come out very well with this, and India will emerge some point as the dominant power in Asia.
All right, Dr. Richard Benkin and Alison